Hello, hello, hello. I'm making a video. I don't know what I'm gonna call the title. I am thinking about some options for the title, but I am not sure. I'm not even sure if I'm gonna upload this video. But I wanna give it a try. So yeah, I'm a little bit nervous about a lot of things, but not near as nervous as I used to be in the past. In the past, there were things that I couldn't even say, and so it just gradually got better as time went by. And I grew up in a household where we were not allowed to shine. We were not allowed to say something like something pride that had anything to do with pridefulness. Like, oh, I accomplished this, or oh, I feel pretty today, or oh, I did this right. We were not allowed to do this. It wasn't like a direct law that was laid out to us, but it was an unspoken, like a some kind of, I don't know how to say it, some kind of legal system under the legal system, something like this. Some unspoken psychological ground rule of do not brag. I mean, so it was so intense. And the irony was my dad, that my dad would then go to parties, and I've seen many times, I heard him say this many times, where he would go to parties and then he will say, and by the way, I donate money to Amnesty International. And then just a few minutes later he would say that he is understated. I am so understated. You have no idea. My goodness. I am so understated that it is the most understated understatement that you can possibly imagine. And then he would go on to explain how the royal people in England, we're from Germany, but he would always talk about the English aristocracy. And I don't know, they were all obsessed, seems like, with the English, like the old wealth and the royal people and all of this. And they would buy a Jaguar with leather seats, which I'm against. Okay, totally opposed to that. No to animal skins. And then he would have his butler drive the car for a long time and even take it home and scratch it up and then bring it back to him. So that way this royal person, royal hair, can say he's very understated. See, I'm so understated. That was his thing for hundreds of years in England. That was a big thing in England. You know, I can still see that in videos. I still see the older English people. They still have this belief that they need to be understated. And so that's how I grew up as well. So I guess this is not just in England. This is also among the so-called, what's the matter now? That is among the so-called wannabe intellectuals. That is very much going on like this. So, no, we are not royal people, but my parents, they want to believe they are. See, there's a big difference between being royal and believing they are. And so we grew up with this, my brother and I, but we turned out, but my brother took some kind of fork road away from each other. It zipped. My brother went into that direction, and I went into that direction. My brother went into bragging the shit out of his life and selling himself completely out to the Muslim agenda, to hating anyone who's a good Samaritan, to anosognotic denial, and to all kinds of things. The underworld, okay? And so I went the other direction, coming from this tabula rasa, if you want to call it, of growing up, seeing the braggery as it is. Right in your face. My brother should have seen it too, and he has. But then he decided to go in that direction as well. So it caught up with him. Even though he I know it bothered him about this braggery and all of that. It went on his nerves. But I think he wasn't even fully conscious of it, or he didn't want to be fully conscious of it. So that's what I think. So, but I was always fully conscious of everything, which is a it is a very difficult life, okay, when you're always 100% conscious of everything, and nothing passes by you without you seeing it. I mean, it's tough, to say the least, because ignorance is bliss, and I didn't have that luxury. But we always need to be grateful for what we have. So if we have an ability to see the BS, then it is not easy. People will hate us. And my whole family hates me because of this, because I see deep into their BS. Okay, very deep. I see it all. And I don't even have to say anything. I'm an IFNJ. I am a highly sensitive person. I'm an empath. And I see, I don't know what they call it, Sigma or whatever. I see right into their brain. And yeah, it is a stare. And I'm sometimes not aware of that. I go somewhere and then I stare at the people. And I don't even know I'm staring at them. I stare at them with X-ray eyes. Okay, and they know very well what I see. They can read everything. They can read what I see in my facial expression. Okay, so you'd be surprised. Most people don't know how much you can read in a human face. It's the truth. It's the truth. Minutest muscles that are toning up and revealing to you the slightest disrespect or the slightest criticism. And the ego of humans does not like any type of criticism, whether that's directly spoken to them or it appears in someone's facial muscle movement. Okay, so the ego does not like that. And I'm just I'm just becoming very clear on all of this. How all of this is so crystal clear now. And I see a lot of people are talking about, there are a lot of people out there, and Paul calls them conspiracy theorists, and he calls them the flying saucer people. That's the favorite. That's flying saucer people and conspiracy theorists. It goes all into the same back drawer, right? And he puts the label on it, and he is completely done with it. And there is no looking into it a second time or any of that. It's just the fate is sealed. Okay, they are finished. Okay, they are. Those people have their judge hammer down on them. Okay, and I let him do it. If he comes, he looks over my shoulder a lot, when I'm in the dining room, and he said, "Who's that?" And all I have to say is, it's a flying saucer person. The blue god agrees. 1111. Oh, thank you, blue god. Yeah. The blue god is smiling with me. Oh, that's wonderful. The blue god is the infinite cosmos. So, yeah, that's all I have to say. And then he just shrugs it off and waves his hand and he walks away. So that way I don't have to do any further explanation, because if I even explained what this or that person is talking about, different people are talking about different subjects, but to him they're all flying saucer people. Okay, so that's all under the same subject, or conspiracy people. And so if I was to explain to him, which I tried a few times, then he would get into a real vicious argumentation, real authoritarian judge hammer, always completely prejudgmental, and so he has absolutely no tolerance at all for me talking about any of these subjects, like Mandela effect or ghosts. There are no ghosts. There are no ghosts. That's just ridiculous. So, but yeah, it is what it is, okay? The reason why I'm here is because we're both animal rights activists, and to me, that takes precedence over the other issue, okay, which is not the minutest issue, but still. He's an animal rights activist, and for me to find an animal rights activist to be living with as best friend, which we're just best friends. We happen to be married, but that had to do with other things. And we were also together in the past. Yes, that ended when I ended it in 2010. So now I just wanted to lay all the cards on the table, because I think it is important to lay the cards on the table so that there is no more debate or someone coming at me and saying, "Aren't you married?" Yeah, for tax purposes, but no, we used to be together. But I love Paul, he's my best friend. He's like a dad. He cares about me, but it's definitely not the easiest communication basis. So that is not the easiest, and it also bothers him that I happen to look at males talking. Yeah, that is not. Who's that? Yeah. So then I have to explain. Flying saucer person. Okay. So now he can walk away. But anyway, so no, I have my crushes and it's perfectly okay. And right now I have a crush on Ishmael Perez. I saw this coming up. I saw this coming up like a tsunami wave inside of me. That's why in the beginning I was like, oh, I better not even watch these videos at all. And I better show my worst side first. And then he was still nice, and I thought he was not for Trump because I thought he was woke. And then I wrote, well, I am strongly supporting Donald Trump, okay? Because our lives literally depend on Donald Trump. And then he wrote back and he said, yes, he does too. And that's wonderful, you know. And I was like, oh, thank goodness. Thank you. And I thanked him for that. And then I saw that he wears Donald Trump hats. And I wasn't sure whether that was maybe a parody or something. Because there are people out there that are making fun of all of this, okay? MAGA. I don't use that terminology. I don't say MAGA. I would never write something like this ridiculous. I write make the world, the whole globe, the whole earth ball, right? Good again. And how do we do this? When the United States has that much influence over the whole world. I mean, definitely right up there with China, right? Then it really depends on who we have in there, in this legislative position, okay? So if we have a kind-hearted, good Samaritan in there, then we will have world peace, okay? And nobody is as diplomatic as Donald Trump. Really, literally nobody, not even Mikhail Gorbachev, is as diplomatic and as people-skilled as Donald Trump is. And he can even make friends with Kim Jong-un. I mean, that takes a lot of psychological skills. I mean, that exceeds Robert Greene by far, you know. That's Robert Greene always reminding us on X, never outshine your master. I had to comment back, I don't have a master, and I don't want a master. I don't need, see, Robert Greene is still in this, he's still in this mental matrix. He's still interwoven in this, you know, in this hierarchical type of way of thinking, the dualistic way of thinking. And that's not good, you know. People need to stand up to him and say, hey, you are not a slave, okay? And you don't need to cater to anyone. But yes, there is my baby dog. There is the beautiful dog. Yes, it's a beautiful. That is a beautiful. Why is this going on now? Yes, that is a good dog. Yes, a good dog is that. He's feeling good now. And that makes Mama feel good. So, yeah, that makes Mama feel so good. Yes. Oh, yes. Oh, yes, it's so good. Yes. Oh, yes, look at that beautiful dog. That's a beautiful dog. Is that? It's a beautiful dog. Oh, look at that beautiful dog. Yeah, it's a beautiful dog. Is that? There's my Casey Kasem. Yes. His name is Elon Casey Kasem. That is his official name now. Because I first had Elon Arnold Dandelion. That was the first idea. but because he's very muscular, yes, I have to cover him. This is a sleeping bag. Because they get very cold very easily. They have almost no hair. But then later on, I found out that he is the reincarnation of Casey Kasem. My goodness, I was amazed. I was watching 48-hour crime report on the Casey Kasem murder, which is really, it wasn't officially a murder, but the reason why it was on 48 hours is because it is pretty obvious that his wife has neglected him to death. So that's pretty obvious when he was old. So he had a much younger wife, and she took full advantage of him, and she's a complete sociopath. So I don't know, maybe not a psychopath, but it definitely is a sociopath. And then in the end, this is very weird, in the end, when she sent him to a rehab where they neglected him, was really awful. The daughters had to come there and rescue him from this weird, that was like some kind of halfway house somewhere in Washington, and some kind of private nurse or something. And they didn't heat the room up enough, and they didn't look after him. They totally neglected him. It was horrific. He died only a few days after the daughters rescued him and brought him back into the hospital. It's horrible. And when the daughters came there, then his wife got there as well. And they had a big shouting at each other, like a big fight. And then his wife was going completely crazy. And she said, and she took a piece of meat from the kitchen there, which is really, what a horror. Okay. And she threw it at the daughters of Casey Kasem. The daughters he had was his first wife. And the daughters, they were absolutely horrified about this. And the wives yelled at them, to the dogs. So like throwing the piece of meat to the dogs, meaning the daughters. But it is ironic because Casey Kasem was very close, a few days before he took his spacesuit off and went to space with his soul. And then many years later, he went to the dogs. He came back as the baby dog. So I know a lot of people think I'm completely nuts and all of that. But the way I can tell someone's past incarnation, I do this through a mental state of playfulness. And I couldn't do it if I was in a mental state of deep thinking or a mental state of concentration. So I can only do this kind of thing. It comes to me just like a child's voice, almost, like child play. I was sitting there on this couch with the baby dog. I was sitting where he's sitting right now, and he was sitting where I'm sitting right now. And the lights were off, and I had my computer plugged in over there, and I was on the internet. I was watching 48-hour crime reports, and someone said Casey Kasem, or I said it. I said I like that name so much. I don't know why, because when I came to the United States from Germany, that was a long time ago, in 1992, but I didn't know anything. I didn't know Casey Kasem. So I didn't know most of these stars and Hollywood people. So I never, I think I may have heard his voice on radio sometime, or maybe older, older reports on TV or something, but not consciously aware of it. But I like this voice. I like this. He always said, reach for the stars, because you should and you can, You can reach for the stars. You can make something out of your life. He wanted to empower people. He was a very good person. He was an animal rights activist. And surprisingly, his wife was too, even though she's sociopathic in other ways. So all of this is very interesting to me now to see, because it's like what Friedrich Nietzsche said. The world is not black and white. The world is not good versus evil. It's much beyond good versus evil. And I read that very book, and it's very eye-opening, and I can really recommend to everyone to read this book, Beyond Good and Evil by Friedrich Nietzsche. I read it in German, and I don't want to read those English translations, because I read some of the English translations and I was appalled about how bad they were translated, because they didn't quite understand Nietzsche and they did not translate this correctly because of that. And now can you imagine how that goes with the Bible? How many translations this thing has gone through, and how many reinterpretations and selfish interpretations and some addendums to it in favor of this or that royal person that calls themselves royal, even though they brag about being humble, right? They brag about being humble, but it always comes back to an overstatement. So my dad, thinking he's understated, he's actually overstated. So it is weird. But when I said the name Casey Kasem, then he looked at me and he was all excited. And I thought, oh my gosh, he is the reincarnation of Casey Kasem. And then, of course, what did Paul say to this when I told him? You said Casey Kasem, the baby dog? Well, that's completely clear what happened there. He heard kitty cat. That he doesn't know the difference between Casey Kasem, kitty cat. No, he doesn't know the difference. And I thought, he's looking now. Yes, he is looking. Casey Kasem? Kitty cat? Yes. No, he wasn't looking when I said Casey Kasem. He was looking now when I said kitty cat. Because now he knows the difference between Casey Kasem and kitty cat. He knows now that he is Casey Kasem. And he knows that kitty cat is still the kitty cat and not Casey Kasem. I hope that makes a lot of sense. So yeah, that's how I know what someone's past incarnation is, and that just comes spontaneously to me in a mental state of playfulness. I don't necessarily have to be doing anything, but I can be in a mental state of playfulness, which I am a lot of times on the internet. So, I look at different things, I talk to my baby dog, I write something, hopefully creative, and then I'm in this creative flow and I can observe people on the internet, and suddenly there I see someone's past lives or the very last incarnation. And I saw my last incarnation also. I did a Brian Weiss internet meditation, and that was interesting. And Brian Weiss said, so You don't have to be in the deepest somnambulistic meditation. You just relax, lean back, and then I guide you through, and then now you go into your past incarnation and you look down on your feet. What do you see? What kind of feet do you have? And I think that's very good. This is a very good entry point into this, also in the very, very smooth type of relaxed. You have to be relaxed in that mental state. You can't be uptight or thinking about anything. You have to be relaxed and be in this playful mind state, to be in this flow of life. Not flow of life in terms of doing what other people do, but the flow of the infinite cosmos. Okay, so then you are in that mental state, in that childlike mental state, and so I didn't have to think much. It just comes to me. Then I see those are not human feet. Those are the feet of a Great Dane, a beige Great Dane. Very much beige, like the baby dog. And yeah, pretty much the color of the baby dog, maybe a little bit more fawn, a little bit more like a deer, just more like a hint more orange, but yeah, like a beige orange color. Great Dane. That's what I was in my past life, and it didn't end well. And I'm not going to get into this now. I cried rivers during that meditation. Rivers and rivers and rivers. Oh my gosh, it's awful. Oh my gosh. But he was very good. He said to us, you can cry, but it's not going to devastate you. Your end, the end, when you experience your end, it's always difficult. An end is always difficult. But particularly when the end is extremely traumatic. So he said, if the end is very traumatic, because he already knows that people's past incarnations, almost all of those, particularly from the people that would even do this meditation in the first place, those are the older souls, most of them, and that's why they end up there on his channel, right? And those are the older souls are the ones that, particularly in the past, through difficult historic times, have been murdered in a very brutal way. So he already knows that. So that's why he said, you're gonna experience your end. You see it. You see it firsthand. You feel it, but you don't feel the pain and you don't feel the devastation of it. You're just guided through it, more like a first-hand observer, sort of. And I thought that was wonderful. And so I got to see this. And if anyone who's getting back into a skeptical mind state afterwards, they can easily say, oh, this is just my imagination. And that's what Paul would say, of course. You have a vivid imagination and you are just making this up as you go because that you heard this or that from someone else. It's just, group persuasion and all of these things that people will say. And so a skeptic will very quickly brush all of this off as just my imagination. And that's how MK Ultra people particularly work. And I joined 2 or 3 Mandela Effect Facebook groups. The one was, I was amazed about the censorship in there. The censorship in that Facebook group, that one Facebook group that had a longer name, that group was, it seemed like, first of all, they make you agree to stick with the subject, and they even make you agree to not be skeptical, right? And to never say to someone, that's not true, I see it differently. They don't even allow that. And yet, in that Facebook group, it was just loaded with people that would come up there and say and gaslight you with your thoughts on, or with your observations, or with your metaphysical ways of thinking. So they would just come there just to debunk and MK Ultra people. Somehow those people are allowed in that group, and they are allowed to MK Ultra everyone. But the people that come there and actually have something to say about the Mandela effect and have made observations, they're then warned several times. And then when I brought in a video of someone showing his Bible that he had for a long, long time. I'm not religious, I don't have a Bible, but I watched this video because I thought it's very interesting that there are words in the Bible that are changing, okay, that are shifting. And I believe it. And he pointed that out very meticulously. He said he has read that many times. He has this real old, very large synopsis between the Greek and even in Greek language. So he must be speaking Greek, particularly the Old Greek, with the different type of letters, the Greek alphabet, and then he has the synopsis of two other synopses of the same passages in this very large book, and two other English version translations that he has as a synopsis. And he was reading this, and he was showing in detail which words have completely changed. That, for example, he was pointing out that they used to say, and the lion is going to lie down with the sheep. And now the word lion switched to wolf. And now it says, and the wolf is going to lie down with the sheep. Something like that. I don't know if I got that completely correctly, but I know that for sure that the word lion was replaced with the word wolf. So what does that mean? That's very interesting. I totally believe it. I believe that even texts that we have had in the bookshelf for a very long time, they can suddenly shift. And they shift according to morphogenetic fields that have taken on a long gradual metamorphosis and a long gradual evolution. And we have different words. We're using different words now. The word matrix appears in the Bible, which people claim it used to not appear in the Bible. I can't 100% verify this because I am not an expert on the Bible. I have read some passages of it, and none of those made any sense to me. But, of course, it's old language also, and lots of those are metaphors. I haven't gotten into it in depth. I never did, because I grew up atheist agnostic, and we were actually shamed into being sort of, but not directly, deliberately, but in a roundabout way, we were pretty much shamed against religion. So, but I had to explore all of these things anyway later on, and listen to a lot of different people. I even went to a pastor who was a logotherapist, a psychotherapist, but with the background in theology. And he told me to buy this synopsis, and it makes no sense, any of that stuff. So, but anyway, I thought this was very interesting, this video about these different passages in his old book that apparently have changed, okay, and have changed the words, the terminology. And I totally believe it. I posted it in this one Facebook group on the Mandela effect. I thought people would be interested, right? That's a Facebook group for that very subject, right? But no, the administrator lady was pissed about that post. I wonder why. Oh, maybe that her entire identification is dependent on this belief system. And now the Bible shifting words, that can't be. That's the word of God. So now, okay, obviously that didn't sit well with her. And then a heated discussion broke out under that post that I made there. And I gave people the best of my knowledge. I gave people my 3 cents, as I call it, on that what I know to be true, okay? And that's what we all do or try to do, and some people don't do. Some people deliberately make something up, and some people deliberately gaslight others, okay? And some people do MK Ultraing, and those people appeared there as well. I think some of them were my haters. Some of them were new haters. Some of them were old haters. Some of them were old CIA, whatever. The ones that lost their job and are now working on debunking any of the paranormal things because they don't want the public to become aware of the paranormal. Because what if people become aware of the paranormal? They could empower themselves. So the MK Ultra type of people, they don't want that to happen. So they will come and they will gaslight us. And I just dismiss it. I dismiss them, I let them gaslight the shit out of everything, and I just ignore them. That's the best you can do. Some people I have to block, because some people are very pesky with these kind of things. So, and some people say something violent, and when they say something violent or very rude or very misogynistic, I block them, and that's it, And that's what everyone should do, and then we don't have to deal with it. And when they come back, you block them again. That's how you have to deal with the internet, obviously. It's a little bit tedious to do this, but we have no other choice. We have to do it, obviously. So, but I give the best of my knowledge, and then the administrator also, it wasn't just one thing, it was several things that pissed her off. It was, first of all, that can't be, the Bible is changing words. That cannot be, that's the word of her Christian God that she believes in, right? Which is, I think that was invented, or it was an ET. So some people say that was Yahweh, who was an ET, who was quite like a dictator, who didn't have not necessarily the other people's well-being in mind, and they wanted to have power over others. Very ego-based, very hierarchical. So apparently there may be some ET civilizations that are like this. So I heard that also from different people, that not all ETs are on the same level, of course. But yeah, that's what it appears to be, that there happened to be an ET king that came there with a spacecraft, or maybe he wasn't a king, but there he saw his chance to become a king. The Blue God agrees with me 4, 4, 4, 4. Yeah, I'm not lying. This is the truth. This is how I know when the blue God agrees. Absolutely. 100%. It's true. This is the truth. And I'm still in that playful mind state. When I get out of the playful mind state, whatever, if I get really, really angry or something, then I'm not intuitive in that moment. But right now I'm in the playful mind state, and that is the same vibration with the infinite cosmos. And then when I talk about certain things that other people might not agree with, or even I get sometimes like, oops, is this true what I'm saying here? But then I see 4, 4, 4, 4, and then I go, okay, the blue God definitely agrees with me on that. So yeah, these things are going on. It is happening. Okay, so I believe it. I believe that there are ETs. I believe that ETs have come here, and some of them were not as evolved, and they saw their opportunity, with the ape humans, the human ape. Okay, and yeah, and maybe that is the one. That's the one in what is the Middle East today. Okay, that they came down there. The bad ETs landed somewhere in Iraq or Iran, which is not a surprise. And yeah, they took up space there, and they rooted themselves there, and they landed their Vimanas there, and then they landed the Vimanas there for good, and then it just, for all of the other civilizations that came after them, then they thought those are just buildings that someone built. Very elaborate buildings, and kind of weird, why is that? Why does it let the sunlight in on the top? But they couldn't make any sense out of it. But Erich von Däniken, a German, Paul calls him a flying saucer person, of course, a German expert on the history of what actually has happened. And I've read some of his books in the past. He's very, very amazing. Okay, and he explains all of this in meticulous, patient ways in his YouTube videos and also in his books, and I highly recommend to people to check it out, read it before anyone puts a judge hammer down like Paul does. Don't do what Paul does. That's kind of like missing out on the full perception, of life. If you run through life with clinging to a specific identification, I am an atheist, or I'm an agnostic, or whatever. His name is Richard Dawkins, and he is identified with all of his books, and I have nothing against him. I think he's a very compassionate person, but I think he's become a little bit bitter and angry because obviously I think somehow deep inside he knows that he's a little bit stagnated and that other people are having some valid arguments, and so he gets a little bit overheated when he talks to people like Deepak Chopra, but that also has to do with Deepak Chopra getting a little bit angry. And then Deepak Chopra is not necessarily in the most playful mental state, but I love both of them, so I watched their heated debate. It was hilarious to see that. But no, I love both of them. They're both great. But anyway, so there may have been an overlord from outer space that called himself Yahweh, and he created this dictatorship out there in the Middle East. Okay, the Abrahamic dictatorship, and then out of that came the three demonic scriptures, right? Islam, Judaism, and the Christian religion. Right? So I can't say that in any other way. So it is not good, okay? And so I don't know why Esther Hicks would call that Abraham, because I don't associate anything positive with that name Abraham. Okay, to me it's just, it makes my hair stand up on end. I find it adverse. I find it very negative. I find it violent. And whatever we heard here and there, passages of this from Abraham, it's not good. Okay, it's not good at all. Abraham testing his disciple in the most gruesome psychological torture ways, making him even forcing him into killing his son, and then in the last ditch moment saying, "Oh no, you're okay now. Okay, you don't have to kill him. I just wanted to see how far you go to give me your absolutely undivided loyalty, me, the overlord from outer space." Okay, so I think that's what this was based on. They wanted to test people to make sure that they are hook, line, and sinker slaves working for them. And then who knows what kind of genetic experiments they have done on them, on the ape humans, on the prehistoric type of humans that had a very large jaw and a very, very slanted back forehead. The forehead was not straight. The forehead was very way back, like even the Neanderthals. I see an ET face there. Now. I can only see that when I'm in this kind of mental state. I see something in there. I don't know what it is. A t-shirt that is crumpled up in my drawer. I have these Tupper container drawers and all of this. I don't have a lot of money. So I see an ET there in that drawer. I don't know if you can see it. There's an ET looking at us. And he has an expression like even has the tongue out, like he has the tongue out on the side. I wonder why. Almost looks like a cigar, but he looks like he looks like he's extremely amused, but he looks kind of like he means well, but he's extremely amused about what I'm saying, all of this. Yeah. I see patterns, okay? So that's another thing that I've always been able to see, patterns over patterns over patterns, in crumpled up clothes, in my bedding, in the rug. There are gnomes coming up in the rug, and trolls, and literally the word troll is coming from ancient times, actually. A troll was a gnome, and a gnome is a dwarf, but there are different types of gnomes and dwarves. They have different heights. The troll the troll is a little bit taller, but not too tall. The troll is about 4 feet high, right? And maybe they used to exist and they're ETs, right? Who knows what's going on? And Ishmael said that those are beings that still exist somewhere hidden, like deep in the earth or in different realms and different dimensions and so on. And a lot of people have been talking about this. I used to do a therapy with a woman in Worpswede, Germany. Worpswede is a very rural community not far from large capital city Bremen, Germany, and it was about an hour and a half or so drive away from my parents. I would go there every week, for I did this except for the weekends. I had to come back home, but I stayed there with that older lady who was also a therapist, and she was deeply involved into all of these spiritual type of things. And I was afraid of all of that. So that's why at that time, I was about 20 or 21, I was very afraid of all of that, and I didn't really want to acknowledge it, but deep down I knew that it's true, but I wanted to stay away from all of this because it scared me. That's why. But she told me that her beautiful daughter, her daughter died very young, at age 20, very tragic. Her daughter was a supermodel for the Vogue magazine, and absolutely gorgeous. She showed me the photos. Beautiful, beautiful girl, and not just on the outside, but on the inside, highly, highly psychic and attuned, with long flowing hair and absolutely like a fairy tale beauty. And she told me all kinds of anecdotes from her daughter's life, what her daughter told her. And she said that her daughter, when she would go into a forest hiking with her daughter would see all of these gnomes and trolls and fairies. And she would tell her mother that, and from early age already. Look, mommy, there are all of these, can you see all of these dwarves and gnomes and trolls and fairies? And they're all walking among us, and they're looking at us. And the mother couldn't see them, but the mother believed that the daughter was able to see them. So at least she, was on board with that and didn't gaslight her. My parents would have gaslighted me like there's no tomorrow. I mean, whatever I ever said to my parents in regards to anything that is out of the ordinary, they would just brush it off as crazy talk. And so I grew up with this, and the pattern goes on. I come back into another relationship, friendship, with someone who does the same energetic pattern, it keeps going on. The same with my parents, the gaslighting, the declaring me crazy and lunatic, and he doesn't hold back with words like this too. So, but as Friedrich Nietzsche said, nothing is black and white. So you have someone who may be mean about this or mean in this way, or when they're in that mental state, but then they are good in other ways. They have compassion in other ways. And I have seen this now. I have seen that even my haters can sometimes be in a mental state of appreciation. They can. I've seen it. And I got mad at them earlier today because their harassment of me is relentless. Blue God agrees. Okay. Absolutely. So I see that with the numbers whenever I look at the number in that very moment. So I see 55 or 5855, something like that. So Blue God agrees. It's the truth. He's nodding his head. It's the truth, So they have been harassing me, and they're harassing me all the time. And their mental state can go very quickly from wanting to murder me to wanting to elevate me onto the status of Jesus Christ. And it goes back and forth all the time. And first in the past, I thought that can't be, right? No, they're talking to someone else. That must be right. But then they would occasionally say it to me, to my name, and sometimes they would say something to me in a comment. But they're also hackers. I know they're hackers because they are very good at bypassing the entire website on YouTube. They know how to glitch themselves past all of the different applications on there, the different type of features like commenting. They can make themselves invisible. And then he would say, or they would put a comment there and they would say, I have to erase the comment now, or I have to make myself invisible because I don't want the other people to see my comment. So those people, I studied them now. They're studying me in depth. Trust me, I am their test animal. I don't know how far into the rabbit hole this goes. Sometimes I don't even want to think about it. Who knows to which Anunnakis this goes, right? That could all be the case. But anyway, I am being observed day and night. Not just on the computer, but through remote viewing and through astral projections. They do all of that with me. And I don't even think they want to make me crazy. I think what it is, these are very lonely people and lonely entities. Very, very lonely. And they see in me this grandmother or mother. They see in me this all-loving, good Samaritan, all embracing with my arms open to all living beings. And they crave that so deeply that they become like dependent on this kindness, on this love, on this unconditional love. And I have that for them, but I get mad sometimes. I do, and I have bad language sometimes, and I'm not a god. I get very, very pissed and very. I get into a very radical mental state, and I have, which I don't want to talk about right now, but I have a very, very, very radical political view. And my radical political view, which Paul happens to agree with, which is, I cannot even tell you in words how rare that is for me, to find someone on this planet that would agree with my secret political views, right? That I do not really want to discuss in most of my videos. I have brought it up here and there in bits and pieces, right? I'm not completely concealing it, because sometimes I have to discuss certain things like that. But if I was to tell anyone I meet my political views, they would run away screaming. They would. Anyone. I don't know anyone who wouldn't. I mean, except for Paul or maybe Karl Dönitz. What? Hello, Karl, if you're out there. Maybe Karl Dönitz would not run away screaming, but everyone else would. But I have to show myself sometimes. I have to let people know that don't create any kind of illusion about me, or don't create some kind of avatar with me, the haters particularly. Don't create some kind of fantasy island avatar. Nikki Daisy, always the same, nice. And if I'm not, they say, stay in character. They actually literally said that to me. And it's like, whoa, brother, I have to perform for my haters because I need to stay in character for them so that they can have their, you fill in the blank of it, fantasies, to say the least. Okay? And obviously, I sway out of that character that I'm supposed to play. I sway out a lot. And I just want to make this very clear also for anyone who is nice who meets me. I am not one of the spiritual community. Even though I am highly perceptive and all of this, the word spiritual, I'm using this now deliberately. I find the word spiritual so incredibly sold out. It is like a chewing gum that has been chewed to the end, where maybe you can glue something with this or throw it in the trash, right? I have thrown spiritual, any of these words, spiritual, spirituality, I have thrown this already into the recycling bin, and I have already replaced that with different terminology that I find more pleasant. For example, I replace that with maybe psychic or highly attuned, highly compassionate, and I have bubbles in my throat right now. I hope I don't burp. So, highly attuned, and I'm deeply compassionate, okay? And I'm infinitely grateful for that, and I would never trade this for anything, for any amount of money, or any amount of power. But having said that, I do feel like I want to become a dictator, and I would be a very ruthless, iron fist ruling dictator. I would, okay? But I would be a benevolent dictator. Under my dictatorship, everything would be turned into a paradise, the whole world. And I'm not just guessing on this. I give this to you with 100% yes, E.T. I'm telling you the truth here. I know you're listening. I am not joking. I would turn, if I was a dictator, with absolute 100% legislative power. I couldn't do it alone, of course. I need people to help me with this. We need to all work on this to make the world a better place. But if I was a dictator and people would work with me on this and comply, okay, we can turn this whole planet here and beyond into a total paradise. I always said to people, I promise you a rose garden, because there used to be this term, I don't promise you a rose garden, from some kind of psychologist in the past. And I thought that, what a bad statement. So I had to change that and say, I do promise you a rose garden, 100%. And I don't only promise you a rose garden, I promise you a Garden Eden and a total paradise. Paradise on earth and beyond and into infinity. A paradise where the animals are free, where the pigs are no longer in gestation crates, where we free all living beings, and where we free Captain Paul Watson, we free Pavel, I forgot the name, Durov, I think is his name. We free Pavel, we I would have long time ago freed Julian Assange so he didn't have to go through what he had to go through. I'm grateful he's finally back at home with his wife and children. Oh my goodness, I prayed for that for years and years and years to the blue God. I'm so grateful that Julian Assange is free. Now, Captain Paul Watson, who has saved thousands and thousands of whales, is now incarcerated in Greenland, because Greenland is run by the Danish government and they are very corrupt, and they must have taken bribe money from Japan because Japan wants them to extradite him to Japan, where he will never come back out. And who knows what they would do to him. And this man is my greatest hero of all. Captain Paul Watson has saved thousands and thousands of whales. He is my greatest hero of all. He is Friedrich Nietzsche's superhuman. And what do humans do? They incarcerate him and want him extradited and want him to suffer in Japan in a horrific prison, where they're going to probably mock him and give him whale meat to eat, and he will voluntarily starve to death. He will not eat whale meat. He will not. And I've been worried about this for many, many years. I've always petitioned him. He was once arrested in Germany, but at that time there were enough Germans, luckily, that were on his side and that helped him to escape. But this time he is in Greenland, and I don't know, these people seem very dogmatic and very, very much like militant slaves. They do whatever the government tells them. So I can just pray to the blue God. I hope that there's one good Samaritan or two that will help him to get out of there. And Greenland's very difficult to get away from Greenland. You know, it's this humongous, almost like a continent, but it's surrounded by ice water. Very, very dangerous situation right now. We have to, if you can, please, every one of you, Ishmael Perez, and I will also tell you that on X, and I hope you are on X. I don't know if you're on X. I think you are. I don't know for sure. I don't know. I hope you change your mind on Elon Musk, because Elon Musk is the Buddha level soul. Okay, so, and everyone out there, every one of you, okay, please write a letter to the Greenland judge and to the president or prime minister of Denmark. Okay, it's a woman. Her name is Frederiksen, I think. And please look it up. I wrote to her, okay, so she has a strange name. So, I think her last name is Frederiksen. And you have to write to these people, to the judge and to the prime minister, and you have to be diplomatic, but you have to be stern, and you have to say, the world is watching this. Please let Paul Watson go home to his wife and children. Very important, okay? So I let you all go. Take care. Peace and love.